How's everybody doing? That's a tough act to follow. I feel like everyone's all happy and inspired now, and what I'm going to talk about is probably just going to totally depress everybody back to where our normal state. But try to stay positive. Think of all the lessons Gage just taught us. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Eric Granof, Vice President of Communications for AIA Surety. I travel around the country giving presentations, state associations, fighting bail reform, tracking legislative stuff. And so, how many people in this room have heard me speak before? If you want to raise your hand, just so I have an idea. How many people have seen me give this presentation before? Well, too bad. I'm doing it again. And hopefully, you'll learn something this time. You'll pay attention. It's a pretty cool room. So Charles, board, you guys did a fantastic job. This is a really cool room. I feel like a rock star up here. That's why I'm going to wait. Hold on. No one's going to believe me. So we're just going to quickly, everyone getting towards the middle. Okay, everyone smile. I think someone's eyes were closed over here. And by the way, so it's now 2 o'clock. Where I'm standing, I can see everything. So if you're going to pull up the U.S. soccer game and not listen to me, I'm going to watch you do that, and I'm going to point you out. Because I'm going to have it on here while I'm talking to you guys. So, anyway. So, how many people, can you guys hear, I have to stand by the microphone, or can you hear me? How many people here are sick and tired of going on the internet and seeing all the negative stuff about our business? Raise your hand if you're really upset about that. How many people have never gone online and searched bail reform and seen all the negative stuff? Because there weren't a lot of hands in that. So most of us probably know, but if you go online and any word that you search that has to do with our profession, there's negative articles out there. And unfortunately, it kind of contradicts what we know the truth is about our industry, right? We know what we do for a living. We know the role that we all play in the criminal justice system. But if we were to go online where other people are going to try to learn about that, they see stuff that really isn't the truth. So in a way, there's kind of our truth, and then there's kind of the internet's truth or the other side's truth about what we do. And so when we think about our business, we think of words like this, right? These are words that we use to describe ourselves. Effective, we're affordable, we're accountable, we work with families. These are good, positive words about what we do. But when you go online and you try to learn anything about our profession, these are the words you see. People calling us predatory. We're abusive. We're punitive. All these really bad words. And you don't have to look very hard. This stuff is out there, and it's out there everywhere. And so the reality is, we know what we do. We know the role we play. Our customers know the benefit we bring to what we do. And yet the reality out there that most people who don't know anything about us, this is their understanding of what we do. So in a way, there's this battle going on between our truth and their truth. And now how do we get our truth out there more than their truth? But there's a third component here, right? It's Google's truth. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the truth is. It's whatever Google's algorithm decides is the truth, and that's what people see when they do searches. And so when you do Google's truth and you type in stuff, and I just did some samples here, right? I still can't believe this is the biggest screen I have ever had above my head giving a presentation before, and it's overwhelming. But at least you guys can see my slides for the first time. So, bail reform. Type bail reform into Google and get, what do you think shows up? Articles about bail reform, right? And so what you'll see there, and I've gone through all these articles, is that the majority of these articles are negative. The first one up there is actually the only kind of neutral article from the government kind of telling both sides of the bail reform story. But if you move down the way, okay, here's an article from the ACLU, negative story about us. Here's an article from the Cato organization. They position themselves as a right-wing think tank, but they hate bail too, so they write lots of articles about our industry that aren't very, very good. The Conversation, the Bail Project, the Appeal, all negative articles about our industry, right? But think about this. If Google and the internet, their role is to, you ask Google a question, a search, do a search for this, and they're only giving you one side of an argument, how is that good information? It's not. Google is influencing the way people think about our business. Now, part of me thinks that Google's doing this on purpose. And then the other part of me, because we all know that we already can't advertise on Google, right? Remember when we used to be able to do paid ad on Google? And then someone over at Google decided that what we do for a living doesn't meet their requirements for upstanding citizens, so they now don't allow us to advertise, which is kind of crazy. So I have to assume that they don't like us and they're being dishonest, or there's something else at play here. So this presentation is kind of try to shed some light on why this is. Why is it when you Google any word on bail, all you get are negative results? And this is the finish out the top 10 of the results for when I type in bail reform. And you can see they're all mostly negative, except of course when the president gets up there and talks about cashless bail, which in my mind, it's a great thing, right? You have the most powerful man on the planet talking about our profession, talking about cashless bail, talking about bail reform and how it's a bad thing. And you think that would be great for our industry. And it is, but what it also did was when he made that announcement, things were kind of calm, right? Bail reform had almost kind of run its course and we hadn't seen a lot of legislative stuff happening. And then as soon as that announcement was made, you saw the activist groups reignite. And you saw legislation come out that we hadn't seen in a bit. They're reviving risk assessments. They're talking about doing these research. So in a way, it was good, but it also had its kind of challenges in terms of what it opened up a can of worms again. But once again, the narrative about what we do for a living is being controlled by other people. And once again, it's not just bail reform. I type in any word, bail bond. I can type in cashless bail, just bail, and all the stuff that we see is negative. Even the AI, I think Google's AI is Gemini, is that right? Something like that. And you ask Gemini about bail, and this is what it tells you. And if you read in there, I mean, this is supposed to be objective, right? You read in here, this is a for-profit system criticized for creating debt, promoting wealth-based detention, and for facing legal. It's like, that's an objective view of what we do, really? So if I know nothing about bail reform and I type that in, this is what I'm being taught. And once again, more negative stuff, article after article, search term after search term. And it's not just bail, right? Google's done this to other industries. If you are a conservative person on the conservative side of the political spectrum, Google would take your data and your content and it pushes it to the bottom of every list that it has when people do searches. It happened to Breitbart. It happened to articles on Breitbart. People would search the exact article and it would get pushed down to the bottom, and negative articles about that topic get pushed in to the top. So we know that there's something going on, right? Either Google is dishonest and Google just is going to say, we don't like these businesses, we're never going to show you information you need about these, or something else is going on. And so how is this happening? So I kind of looked into this to see really what was going on out there. And so about 3 years ago, I gave a presentation on George Soros. How many people have heard of George Soros? I hope every hand should be up in this room, because this guy single-handedly is impacting the amount of bonds that you guys write every single day, because he is funding the entire effort to get rid of bail. So he is not someone you should like, he's someone you should know about, and he is having a direct impact on our business. And I'm talking even about what you see on Google when you search Google, okay? So part of that presentation I gave, I talked about the money and the influence that starts with this guy, Soros, right? So here's just an example of what's happening. You got George Soros who gives money to these groups. Okay, Democracy Alliance, these are funds that control money that then disperse money to activist organizations and other types of things, right? So you get, this money goes to a group like the Brennan Center. How many people have heard of the Brennan Center? Okay, the Brennan Center came out with a report that says that when you release somebody from jail for free, they show up for court just as much as someone who has money on the line. What do you guys think about that? Is that true? Exactly. In fact, it's common sense that that wouldn't be true. But you know what? These guys produced a research paper that says that's true. Okay? And then what do they do with that research paper that you see up there? Well, they take it and they have a panel at John Jay College, which, by the way, is funded by George Soros and all this money. That panel has a discussion about this research project, and everyone says, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You can let people out of jail for free, and they're just going to show up. You don't have to make them put up anything at all. And then what happens is you get the Tides Foundation on the other side, an activist group. They get wind of this paper, and then they take this paper and they go to their other activist groups, and those other activist groups take that paper and they go to state capitals. And they say, hey, look, we have a research paper that says you don't need to have bail agents. You can let people out of jail for free, and they're going to show up. And the Capitol goes, really? That's great. Well, let me go ahead and let's check the media on this. And they go and they check the media, and the media is writing stories about this research paper. They're writing stories about the panel discussion that happened at John Jay College, talking about how you can release people from jail for free. And so what happens? They say, okay, let's just be really careful here. Let's go check this company Ono. They do fact checking, right? We'll fact check whether this research is real. And what happens? They fact check it, and the fact checkers say, yes, this research is real. But guess who funds the fact checkers? George Soros. So they have created their own ecosystem of research, media, activist groups pushing it, fact checkers, and legislators see this information, they see all the stuff behind it, and what do you think happens? They get convinced to pass a law to do away with bail agents in the bail system because they've been told, and there's a research study that shows them, that you can release people for free and they're going to show up for court. This is what we're fighting every single day. It is a corrupt ecosystem of lies, of not truths about what we do for a living. Now you take that to the level of what I'm talking about with content on the internet and when you do searches. These four groups behind me, the Bail Project, MacArthur Foundation, and the Vera Institute, and the Pretrial Justice Institute, these are the groups controlling the narrative online. They get the money from Soros, they get money from all these groups, and these groups are out there, and I'm telling you, this is not, Eric's not up here telling you conspiracy theories. They brag about this. They've admitted what they're doing. This is an organized, strategic thing. It's all about messaging and communications. And these guys are coming up with their narrative. They are educating people on how to spread the narrative. And then they're doing all these things around that. They're doing research papers. They're convincing media. They're doing media interviews. They're doing panel discussions. These people know exactly what they're doing. This is like from the Vera Institute. This is their annual report talking about the money they're spending and educating and getting people around this narrative. They create stories and share these stories to create other people, teach other people how to create these same stories, all talking about how bail is bad. Release people for free. And just more of this stuff. You see it through all their communications. They're shaping messaging. They're drafting opinion pieces. And then they share it. Other groups share their content. And then the MacArthur, they redo their website. They do research. They sit down with focus groups and they talk about, well, if we talk about stories about people, how they're arrested and they can't afford a bail bond, what does that story resonate with? It resonates with consumers. Consumers, you tug on the heartstrings and consumers are going to support you. No one should ever have to pay for a bail bond because it's not fair, right? People are just, the only reason someone ever steals something from a store is because they're going to feed their family, right? But meanwhile, they're walking into a store, they're not stealing bread, they're stealing big screen TVs or electronics, right? If you need to feed your family, you just go steal food. But we just know that's part of their false narrative. Once again, it's just all this money is going into communications, it's going into content. Now, the reason we know this is effective is if you look back only 2013, okay? In 2013, bail reform, bail, criminal justice, was the 100th most talked about topic in the media. Think about it. That was 99 things that the media talked about before they ever talked about bail, which is why you never heard anyone talk about bail. Well, all this work that they've done, with this research and the money and the communication and the education and going around and talking to people about this stuff, bail went from being the 100th most topic to the 6th most popular topic in only 2 years. Think about that. No one talked about bail, no one knew about bail. In 2 years, these groups strategically and intentionally controlled and created a narrative around bail that became the 6th most popular topic on the news. That is unbelievable. Now, I've been doing communications my entire life. That is not easy to do. Even with the internet, there's so much noise out there. These guys have been able to control the conversation on the internet about our business. These people that aren't involved in our business, they don't do what we do, they don't understand what we do, they don't care about what we do. These are the people that are deciding for you, your future, and what people think about what you do for a living. Think about that. That's not a fun thing. That's a scary thing. They spend an obscene amount of money. Historically, in the bail reform fight, we had an advantage, is that all these groups were always funded by government taxpayer dollars, right? And eventually what happens when you are funded by taxpayer dollars, eventually you run out of taxpayer dollars. And that's kind of what we relied on as an industry. They would always run out of money. And that's why we would always continue on, and they would run out, and then they'd have to wait for their next funding. And so we were always able to beat them back. Well, eventually, billionaires were created, and these billionaires feel really guilty about having so much money, and so they want to give out all these special causes. So these activist groups now, these groups committed to getting rid of bail, are funded with more money than you could ever imagine. They are never going to run out of money again, and it's a whole new fight for us because of this. And they are investing millions and millions of dollars into this infrastructure to control the narrative. And once again, they do research. They sit down with focus groups, and they know what messages they should give to legislators, and they know what messages they should communicate to consumers. I mean, this is scientific, strategic stuff that these people are doing. And then they teach other people. They have classes where the groups will come in and they teach them how to communicate. They teach them how to tell the stories. They teach them how to target specific people. They know economic themed messages work great with legislators, and they know the heartstring stories work great with consumers. So this is how it works. The Brennan Center creates a study. That study's funded by the MacArthur Foundation, which connected to Soros. Those guys get millions of dollars to do a study. Okay? And in that study, what does the Brennan Center do? They talk about other studies. They cite the research that they use to create their research, right? But the interesting thing is when you begin to see what research they cite other studies that they themselves did. They cite Data Collaborative for Justice, Vera Institute. What they're doing is they're citing resources of other activist groups. Okay? So in other words, it's like if me and Charles decided, you know, we're going to go write a paper, and I'm going to say, well, Charles said this in my paper, and he's going to say, well, Eric said that in his paper. We've created this circular reference, making ourselves legitimate when we really have no credibility or legitimacy. It's just two people agreeing with each other. That's what these people have done. They've literally created a network that creates credibility for every piece of crap that they put out there. Okay? And legislators see that, and what happens now is Google's algorithm sees that. And so what happens? All these groups take this study, which they're cited in, and they promote it. They promote it for the Brennan Center, because when they promote it for the Brennan Center, they're promoting it for themselves. Okay? And then what happens? All their people go on social networks, and they share the content. And what happens when Google sees people share content? You move up the ranking list. It must be relevant. It must be interesting. It must be truthful. All these people are sharing it. All these people are talking about it. This is how they manipulate the algorithm. This is how they manipulate the system. And this is why every time you type something into Google, their content shows up. When's the last time you saw an article that one of us wrote about how good bail is? It's really hard to find that stuff online. pay an exorbitant amount of money to PR firms that go out and they push these stories, they tell these stories, they get these guys articles, they get these guys interviews. You know, when do you, I mean, we're getting better at it, but once again, this is the kind of stuff that the algorithm sees. This is what ends up being put in front of the public. Everything from legislative documents, I mean, these studies are infiltrating into how decisions are being made. Right? Your legislator relies on data. That data is being provided by these guys. It's not being provided by us. And that's the problem. And so what happens is the Brennan Center, all these other studies are done. And the Brennan Center cites these studies in its study. And then what these studies do is they go back and they reference the Brennan Center in their studies. And then they share it on social media. And once again, this is how it's all created. This is the circular reference structure. You can begin to watch it here, right? He says all these different organizations all share the same research. They all cite each other. And then they go ahead and they give the research to all their activist groups. And those activist groups go out there and they spread the misinformation. They spread the data. And then eventually Google sees that. And that's why, can you guys hear me? Hello, hello? Is that still on? And that's how Google puts all their content at the top of the list when you type in any question about bail reform. So how can we compete with this? We can't. Thanks. It's nice talking to you guys. No, seriously. Think about it. Who do you think knows the topic of bail better than anybody? You guys, right? You guys live and breathe this stuff every day. How do you get your truth, our truth, out there? Okay? While it seems overwhelming, or what's the word I'm supposed to use for overwhelming? Energized? In demand. That doesn't work. Anyway, okay, so it's not as hard as you think. Okay? You don't need a ton of money. What you need is infrastructure. What you need is a network. And what do we have? Without really realizing what we have. I don't know, 15,000 bail agents around the country? That sounds like a pretty good network to me. What if we were to leverage the network that we have, that we underutilize and that we don't even really do anything with? We've got 22 state associations in this country, okay? We've got 2 national associations, NABA and PBUS. We have 10 plus sureties, or if not more. And then we've got 15,000 bail agents. We have partner groups. We know every single person in this room knows a sheriff, right? Every single person in this room has had some interaction with a victim advocacy group. District attorney, safety group. We all have these kinds of partners that understand the value that we bring and that would be willing to work with us. We have a PR firm. I don't know if you guys even knew that. There's an entity called the Bail Media Alliance that's been started. Several of the sureties, PBUS has been involved, state associations where we have a PR firm now that tells our story out in the media. We've got podcasts out there. I don't know how many people you guys pay attention to the podcasts that are out there. There's one called Bail in the Midwest, and there's one called The Bail Post out of Texas. These are great sources of information about our industry. Great sources of information that each and every one of us should be sharing online. How many people here have received like an article that I've written, or an email from me, or AIA, our newsletter or something? Like 3, so I have a really bad email list apparently. So there's content out there, okay? I write probably 2 or 3 articles a week. There's guys in the industry, other sureties, that write articles, okay? We have really good stuff out there. The problem is we don't do a good job of sharing it. We don't do a good job of liking content. We don't of commenting on content. And unfortunately, this is the kind of stuff we need to start doing. We have tons of topics to write about. Failed bail reform, research that has been done, crime stories, victim stories. There's tons of things we can be talking about out there that we're just not doing. So what we need to do is we need to coordinate. We need to work together, okay? When I said how many people here are sick and tired at the beginning, raise your hand if you're sick and tired of hearing news stories about how bail is bad. Everyone's hand goes up. You need to play a role. If you're sick and tired of seeing the negative stuff, then play a role in getting the positive stuff out there. Because there's plenty of positive stuff. Like I said, I put out 3 articles a week about this stuff. And if you don't want to write an article yourself, then I'm more than happy if you want to share mine. I don't care. I don't care if another surety puts out an article, I will share another surety's article. Because it benefits me. It benefits my company. It benefits all companies. It benefits all agents when people know the truth about what we do. So, so we did some research, and most people have a website. I know most of the sureties have websites. Most of the sureties write content. But there's something called a ghost site, and there's nothing nefarious about it. It sounds real ghost. It's basically just Google, G, and the word host. So what Google decided to do is if you don't have a website, you can create something called a ghost page. And it's literally a website that's hosted by Google that you can write stories on and post them on. It's super easy to set up. They make it very easy. But the benefit of it is that Google crawls it and indexes that site. So any content you put up is seen by Google instantaneously. So if I were to put an article on the AIA website, it takes some time for Google's bots to crawl and to index that page and to see that content. But if you do it on a ghost site, it happens almost automatically. So that's good. That means we could write content that Google would see automatically and hopefully field up in its search results much faster than if we didn't do that. So we discovered these ghost sites. We've created a ghost site. If anyone wants to take a picture, there's the URL of the ghost site. I recommend you do take a picture of it because, like I said, this is where the content's going. In about a month and a half, 2 months, we've written about 80 articles that are up on this site that have been on social media, that have been shared on other people's sites. But this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's super, super easy. We're all on. If for anyone in this room tells me they're not online all the time, you're lying. I mean, we all are. We're all on social media. We're all on Facebook. We're on our phones. We're looking at stupid cat videos for hours upon hours upon hours. You know what? It takes about 5 seconds to click on a link on a story about your profession and to share it, or to comment on it, or to like it, or to do something like that. That is all we need to have happen, guys. It's that easy. The content is out there. We just need to make an effort to share it, like it, comment on it. And there's just a couple, just showing you examples of what the site looks like. I mean, it took me about 5 minutes to set this site up. And then it just, people sign up, I write an article, they get an email that there's a new article. And you can see, it's like I'm writing original content, or I'm taking other people's content and I'm rewriting it. You know, and once again, all the content comes from everybody. I don't care if it's another surety's content. If it's a good article about bail, I will absolutely use that on my site. If your competitor writes a really good article or shares a really good article about your profession, like it, share it, do something, rewrite it, but give them credit for it because that's what they do. We need to create our own circular reference structure around this content. And when Google sees people liking it and sharing it and commenting on it, what do you think Google does? The algorithm kicks you up the list and your content becomes more visible. So this is just an example of what happened. So this is the first article that I wrote on the Ghost site, okay? And so I wrote an original article, and so how many people in the room use AI to do anything? Yeah. I wasn't a big AI guy. Still convinced it's going to end the world. We've all seen the movie, right? Eventually, something that you make that's smarter than you figures out that, like, wait, why am I doing all this work for all these people? I'm better than these people. Let's end all the people. And then they create Terminators, right? And then we all know how that ends. However, before that happens, I've figured out that I'm using AI now in how I write. And what I'm doing is, because if, say Jeff Witt over here writes an article. It's a really good article, right? I don't want to take his exact article and put it on my site. What I do is I take his article and I use Grok. That's one of, I mean, you can use ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's Grok. I use Grok, I'm an Elon guy. I'll put his article in Grok and I'll say, write a two paragraph summary of this article. So what I'm doing is AI is taking Jeff's article and it's summarizing it, so I have different content on the same subject. And then at the end of the article, I reference Jeff's article and I link to Jeff from my Ghost site. And so Google now sees, okay, this guy wrote an article, it's on this website. This website over here mentioned his article, and it's also linking to his article. So that, what it does is says, this article Mr. Witt wrote is now, that must be a credible, legitimate article. And oh yeah, by the way, 15 people on Facebook are also linking to his article. That's how the algorithm begins to think about content. Like I said, this isn't rocket science, folks. It's like if someone writes one good article, you throw it into AI, AI does all the work, writes a summary, you take the summary, post it on your site, and link to the original. That's how we create a circular reference structure. That's how we compete with billions and billions of dollars that these groups have to generate and create all the content that they do. And this is just an example of like the Grok stuff. You know, you have to, and by the way, if you ever do have AI write for you, you have to read through it, okay? AI writes with a certain style. You have to edit it. You have to go through and just rewrite it a little bit, change it here, change it there. AI loves dashes for some reason. There'll be dashes like all over your article. And Google also can tell if something's pure AI. So try to rewrite what it does give you, or tinker with it a little bit and edit it. But it's very simple to write stuff now. I mean, there'll be a topic out there. I'll go to Grok and I'll say, write me an article on this bail reform, statistics on people released with no bond versus people released with bond. And it'll spit out a 2-page article that's pretty good. And I go through and I rewrite it. I go through and I check all the sources and I add sources and I do things. But the basics of the foundation of an article, it's super easy to generate now. And trust me, they're doing the same thing. That's how they can create these studies and these articles and their content as well. So we're up to, I think, 90 articles now. I think this is 78 when I put this presentation together. And you can begin to see on the Ghost site, this is the traffic trajectory of what we've been able to do in just a short amount of time in terms of people viewing this. And once again, this is all based on me going around to state associations and speaking to 50 people in a room saying, hey, go to this website, like it, become whatever. Just imagine if we were able to engage our entire network of agents, right? I mean, I write an article now, I get, I don't know, 5 shares, 6 shares, a couple comments. Imagine if there's 1,000 shares. 1,000 out of 15,000 is nothing. 500 out of 15,000 is nothing. Yet the impact online would be enormous. We have to leverage the network that we have. We have to put some kind of effort into saving our profession. Because I'm telling you, the worst possible thing ever is to have your future be based on the narrative of somebody else. Somebody that does not like you, someone that thinks that you are evil, and someone that wants to end you. Because this is what's happening. Now what? I'm going to show a slide at the end. It's got some stuff on it. Websites. Take a photo of it. Go to the websites. If you don't follow all the sureties that were in this room today, I mean, there's AIA's got Facebook page, bankers got Facebook pages, Lexington does, American Surety does. Everyone has a Facebook page. Just like them all. I don't care who you write with. And when content comes out, just share it, like it, comment it, say, hey, I really like this article. Thanks for putting the truth out there. Just something like that. If you're more adventurous and you want to get involved in content development, 100% feel free to start writing some articles. You know, all you have to do is just Google bail reform or Google bail bonds, and you'll see a recent news story about a judge making a decision on someone posting a bond. So what do? Is you read the article, say, okay, what's the angle here? What's interesting about this? And you can write an article yourself. Email me. I will share your article. I don't care. If it's good and it's going to help us, I'll share whatever you guys send me. But we all need to play a role in doing this. So here's kind of what we've done. So AIA Surety, my company, has a blog. I write on the blog. I'll write a blog and then share it on the Ghost site. Right? So I got 2 sites now sharing content. Okay, then I write content on the Ghost site, and I share it on the AIA site. So once again, I got two sites sharing content, as well as on all the social media. So you imagine the potential now here is we think, okay, I take my AIA site, I got the Ghost site, and then there's other content out there on whether it has to do with third parties, like district attorneys that I have relationships with, or district attorneys you might have a relationship with that's willing to share an article or even write an article that then you can share. We've got victim advocacy groups that have Ghost sites now that I've talked to. There's one called Crime Survivors that I actually ghost write on her Ghost page so that we have a different perspective talking about our industry. Other sureties. Chris Blaylock, former ABC at Universal, he's got a Ghost site that I share content back and forth with. Blair Harvey at Roche, he's got a Ghost site that I share content with. So if you begin to think about this network, and if you remember that picture I showed you before of how they create that circular reference, you really begin to think about the potential of what we can do, right? Just amongst ourselves, between, you know, AIA, other sureties, bail agencies, state associations, the partners that we work with in the criminal justice system every day, and you begin to see that we can create a pretty significant circular reference structure of our own. And you start with one piece of original content. I write one article. This is the potential of what could happen, is that article gets shared on every one of those sites. And then each one of those articles, those sites then shares content to the other site, and you can see this incredible network and web of content and information that we have the capacity to create. And this is how we can compete with that negative information on us. This is how, when a legislator wants to pass a bail reform and get rid of you guys or do something that's going to be detrimental to our business, this is how we provide them content. When they do a search, they'll see our content up on Google now, instead of just the activist content, just the negative stuff. And like I said, it's already there. It just has to be shared and activated by all the agents, not just in Mississippi, agents in Alabama, agents in Florida, agents in Connecticut, agents in California. We have to activate everybody. So whatever you're comfortable with, start writing articles, use AI, start sharing articles, summarizing articles. If you want to create a Ghost site, email me. I'll call you, I'll have a conversation with you, I'll show you how to do it real fast. It's super simple. I think it's like $19, $29 a month if you want to be able to send out a newsletter. And like I said, it's how we're going to compete. And like I said, whatever level you want to participate at, you can share stuff, you can comment on stuff, you can write stuff. Commenting is great. They really look for that stuff. But it's just really what everyone's up for. So here's the last slide. I normally end with a bunch of quotes, but I think I took it out the last presentation because I thought they were funny and nobody laughed, so I figured I'd save you guys from having to go through that. Any comments? Any questions? Any people want to volunteer to share, comment, like, write, any of the above? You guys still awake? I can tie people up a string if you want. I mean, if it's going to help, but yeah. Yeah, so there's a group called the Bail Media Alliance, and right now so about 15 years ago, our surety hired a PR firm, okay, and it was called Media Vista, and we did some work with them, and that PR firm then started working with the American Bail Coalition. And how many people here from the American Bail Coalition? They did a lot of media, they did a lot of stuff, they were getting interviews. It's probably over 1,000 television interviews, 1,000 articles being done. So this group is very knowledgeable about bail. You won't find a PR firm that knows bail better than these guys. In all these years, over time, state associations like Kansas Bail Association, Professional Bondsmen of Texas, PBT, they hired this media firm also. So what we decided to do with PBUS's involvement, Kansas's involvement, is we brought together a small group, it's about 5 people right now, that are going to try to lead an effort to do a better job communicating for our profession. And so what we've done is we've asked other state associations if they want to participate. It's like $250 a month, $500 a month to be part of the alliance. And the PR team will do work for that state. So right now we've got Colorado is involved, Florida is involved, Kansas is involved, Washington State's involved. And so what we do is we pitch the president of their state association or whatever spokesperson they have to the media. And the big topic right now has been around bail scams. How many people have heard of these bail scams going on right now around the country where people call up and say, oh, someone you know has been arrested. Or they'll say, you know what, someone you know has been arrested, and they actually have been. Why don't you come to the parking lot of my bail agency and give me some cash and I'll make sure they get out. So they're literally going to real bail agencies, sitting in the parking lot, meeting customers, while the real bail agent's inside, has no idea this is going on outside in his parking lot, and then the guy gives the guy an envelope of money, they part ways, and then he comes back a week later and saying, how come my cousin was never bailed out? And the bail agent's like, what are you talking about? But these scams are going on right now. Bail Media Alliance is pitching bail agents all over the country right now that are involved to the media to talk about these scams, to raise awareness, to tell people, educate them what to look out for. So that's just an example of us taking a topic and trying to spread the word in a positive way from our perspective. I think if there's a roadblock or a challenge that we've had, it's getting enough people to participate, and even getting the word about the Bail Media Alliance. Because listen, I think the centralization of ideas and strategy for our industry has never really happened in an effective way, at least not while I've been in this business for over 20 years. And it needs to. And I think we're getting better at it, but it still involves a lot of kind of everyone kind of coming to the table. Does that answer your question? Or okay. Anything else? I know I'm probably on a time thing here, but listen, that's my info. Anytime, call me, email me. If you guys are interested in learning more about this, or if you just even want to participate with some of these sites, you just go to the site and sign up. And that is about it. How am I on time?
You're great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.